Right, back with you on the Newsfeed PM. Thanks for staying on. The Tshiamiso Trust and the National Social Security Authority are partnering to assist former mine workers in Zimbabwe seeking compensation for permanent lung damage due to silicosis and work-related tuberculosis contracted in qualifying South African gold mines. The families of the deceased mine workers will also be able to lodge a claim on behalf of those who have already passed on. For more on this, we'll speak now to Tshiamiso Trust CEO, Dr. Munyadziwa Kwinda. Doc, good to have you, and thank you very much for joining us this afternoon.
Good afternoon, Thabo, and good afternoon to your viewers out there. Thank you for having us.
First and foremost, let's talk about the extent of course, this number of people who are affected by this.
Thabo and the viewers, you cannot really talk about the number, especially because we work on a database of mine workers, and they have to be assessed so that we can see how many of them have been affected by the silica dust causing silicosis in their lungs, and those who have also suffered from tuberculosis. And this we get from the lodgements that we receive as the trust, because we only deal with the gold mines, and through the lodgements that we receive, then we are able to determine where we are sitting. So currently, since we started operating in December 2020, but really we operated fully from March 2021, we have got more than 150,000 claims that have been lodged with the trust so far.
Now, of course, are there lessons that you are learning, particularly with the lodging of claims, to the situation that has happened here in South Africa? I mean, you were dealing with people here in South Africa who were going through the same process, having to go and get medical inspections, get those records then through to the trust. Others have already passed on, and it created a little bit of confusion and a little bit of discomfort in some of the families, this particular process.
Yes, there are lots of lessons to be learned, and Thabo and the viewers, these lessons also informs the trust deed amendments that we made. As you know, the settlement agreement between the lawyers who were representing the mine workers through a class action and the 6 gold mines that are the founders of the trust, there was a trust deed as part of the settlement agreement, and we are sitting now at amendment number 10 of the trust deed. And it is because some of the things that the parties agreed to on the table, as we continue as the trust executing our mandate in terms of the trust deed, we do realize that certain things were not thought of from an experience point of view. But I'm happy that at least when you go back to the parties, they are willing to relook at the matter. Hence, now we are sitting at finalizing amendment number 10, while we are just halfway into the life cycle of the trust. So there are lots of lessons to be learned. And what you said in terms of documents, I'll give you a practical example. The trust deed originally spoke about, for those who have passed away, silicosis or TB should be the primary cause of death as reflected in an official death certificate. And you and I know that that death certificate that you're going to receive from Home Affairs will only indicate natural causes. It does not disclose the disease from which somebody died from. So we had to introduce through an amendment a certificate on the medical cause of death, which is commonly known as a death notification form, where you will find the cause or the clinical cause of death there as registered by a medical practitioner.
So that deals with the inadequate post-mortem reports that normally become a challenge. But what happens if that very same medical report is now lost due to negligence over decades? Many historical medical records have been lost and destroyed.
Thabo and the viewers, it is really a challenge that we face. And when you are down on the ground, as you know, hospital records are kept for only 6 years. And many a times what we have found is that most of our mine workers, when they go into our public hospitals, there is poor history taking where no one even knows that this person has ever worked in a mine, because from an occupational health point of view, such records must be kept for a longer time. So you find a situation where somebody has died of silicosis, but no one even knows that it was silicosis. And then after 6 years, the hospital records are destroyed. Then when you ask the family to say, go back to the hospital where your deceased relative passed away to get a death notification form, they don't find such forms. And that is where the challenge is. Unfortunately, without that information, because the trust deed is quite very clear, there should be evidence that somebody has died of a silicosis or have died of work-related TB, meaning that within 12 months of leaving the mine, then unfortunately we have to return such claimants, sadly so, but that is the situation that we are facing.
Now, you are anticipating, I suppose, also some legal disputes here, and how are these going to be handled? Particularly now you're talking about situations that include, I suppose, the government of Zimbabwe as well.
Yeah, so really, the disputes, from how we deal with disputes, we have not really had challenges in terms of what I can call legal disputes as the trust since we started operating. Our trust did make provision for claimants to dispute the outcome. For example, the outcome at the level of entry level, if we say you do not meet the minimum criteria, a claimant can lodge a dispute with the trust, and we have got a certificate reviewing authority that will look at that. The same applies with somebody who is not happy with the outcome of the medical reviewing authority, the medical certification panel. When they tell them maybe you do not have a qualifying disease, then we have got the medical reviewing authority. So we do have that internal mechanism. And it's to avoid a situation, Thabo and the viewers, that most of our claimants may not even afford to go to the court really to go for legal disputes. Hence, the parties, when they were settling, they ensured that there is an internal mechanism that does not cost the claimants anything to get their cases being reviewed within the trust itself.
Does that also look at claimants who might feel that the compensation is inadequate?
Yes, that is now at the level of the trust certification committee, because the trust certification committee is the one that determines the amount that has to be paid. But what we have also seen is that because there is what we call a benefit modification process that is done by the agent representing the mining companies, and this really talks about how many years has this person worked in a qualifying mine. Sometimes the amounts are reduced, and we do have disputes related to that where somebody feels that I should be getting the full amount.
Now, where are these medical tests going to be done, and who's going to pay for them? As you already mentioned, some of the claimants are vulnerable at this particular point and lack, of course, the resources to even conduct such medical checks.
Yeah, the medical examinations, called the benefit medical examinations, are done by accredited practitioners. That is accredited by us as the trust. So if you give an example with Zimbabwe, we do have a company that we have accredited to conduct benefit medical examinations in Zimbabwe. They go through the process, and then claimants in Zimbabwe, because we do not have TEBA, that has been a lodgement partner since we started. So our medical service provider, who is doing benefit medical examinations in Zimbabwe, is also doing the lodgement. So what happens is that claimants go and lodge, and those who are due for benefit medical examinations then are examined. Now, claimants do not pay for benefit medical examinations. They are free, except claimants who have worked in a qualifying mine or who have worked less than 5 years. Those are claimants that pay for their examinations. But should they be found to have a qualifying disease, we refund the money that they paid for the benefit medical examinations. But those who have worked more than 5 years, they don't pay for the benefit medical examinations. They are done for free.
All right, and is there a cutoff to when claimants can lodge a claim in terms of the trust and the benefits that they need to get?
The trust has been established for a period of 12 years, and we are looking from 2019 to 2031. And the trust deed is quite very clear that the first 10 years, as we speak right now, we are just left with almost 4 years of that. The first 10 years is the time to locate claimants and lodge them. Then the final 2 years will be now to be processing every claim that is on the pipeline. So the first 10 years up until 2029, that is where we are locating, we are lodging claimants. Then the last 2 years, which is 2030 and 2031, then we will be scaling down, finalizing all those claims that are on the pipeline.
Doc, we appreciate your time. Thanks so much for coming on.